confused. Just who is this Godzilla guy?
Yes, wise one, please teach us.
I don't know if you're ready for this.
It's big. Something big's approaching. It's Godzilla. Godzilla? What a creature.
He's heading for Tokyo.
Boy, what a day. Godzilla's at large once again. We must send in all the armed forces. Godzilla. Godzilla! What is it that you love so much about Godzilla?
Well, I'm not sure you'd understand.
Destroy the city! I'll build it again! You see? Godzilla!
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 Hey, welcome to ShallowCast. I'm Nafansaurus, and this is our very special Godzilla review and ShallowCast season finale episode.
This movie has rocked me to my very core.
Mm-hmm.
I am figuratively speechless, and
Okay.
It has redefined what it means to be a who the hell is that?
Oh, hi.
You didn't know she was. I brought her into the studio with me. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. Who the hell is that?
Hang on. You tell him who you are. I don't have time for this administrative duty.
My name is not cool enough to put in my username, but I am Hannah, also known as Black Hole Girl.
Yeah, no, I've mentioned her, in every other episode since we've started recording.
Black Hole Girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were making
I'm not just some creepy lizard that Nathan keeps in his closet. That's just not how it works.
No.
Okay.
That's not who the little shrine in my closet is for. That's something else entirely.
Okay. I thought you were just making a very elaborate Excel saga joke. But anyway.
I don't know what that means.
That's okay.
Neither
I'll
do
explain
I.
later.
Okay, is this it's an anime thing, right?
It sure is, but that's not what we're here to talk about. At least,
Yeah,
not
what we're
technically.
here to talk about is the fact that I now have to share my podcast with 2 white people. So thanks, Obama. No, it'll be good. For everybody who doesn't know, somehow Xander and Hannah are actually 2 of my very best friends. They're in my top 5. And so I'm now sharing this podcast with 2 of my favorite people in the world. So I'm very pleased about this.
You need to get out more.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, we don't need to get it out more. We just need to get out once to see Godzilla, which is why we're here.
Yeah, which we saw. And Xander, I guess as long as we're talking about Godzilla, what'd you think?
Do I even need to say it? I mean.
Yeah, you ought to say it for posterity, if nothing else.
I mean, I was kind of joking about being figuratively speechless, but at the same time, I don't know what else to say about it other than it's pretty much perfection. It's pretty damn awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been on record in every single episode as talking about my massive trepidation about this film and how worried I was about it. I mean,
every step of the way.
We just recently put out that episode that we recorded 3 months ago, and when I was putting it together, I thought it was hilarious because we literally knew next to nothing about the movie, and then it took so long, it makes no sense, and then, by the time the movie came out, you were pretty on the fence, and then by the time the movie came out, you're just like, okay, I think we'll be all right. And now you've actually seen it, so what happened?
I've been living with the long, slow drama of going from nervously excited to close to panic attack from how awful it's going to be, and it's been very entertaining for me to watch.
Well, I mean, I waited 16 years for this, and I was really, I've said this a couple times, the trailers for Phantom Menace were good. They made that look like a good movie. So what if all these Godzilla trailers were just very good at hiding how horrible the movie was? I didn't know.
Then that makes Gareth Edwards a better filmmaker than George Lucas, and honestly, I don't think I'm wrong.
It's not hard to be a better filmmaker than George Lucas.
That doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, all right, I guess I should say that I was very afraid that this wasn't going to be a good movie. I was afraid there wasn't going to be enough Godzilla. I was afraid that Godzilla was going to look really dumb. I was afraid about a lot of stuff. But once I finally realized, and this was my mental process, it's like there's different Godzilla suit designs in every film. And, some people don't like the suit in Godzilla 2000 or the one in Final Wars or whatever.
Duck.
I didn't think he looked very much like a duck, but I hear that from a lot of people. But all that's to say, if I look at the CGI design as just another Godzilla suit, then I was going to be okay with it going into the film. But then I actually saw the film, and I was very impressed with how they handled Godzilla. The toys don't do him any justice, and the trailers don't do him any justice either.
Like, all the toys, with the exception of the recently announced Tamashii Nation, I don't even know if it's Tamashii Nation that's actually making it, but, there's those high-scale Monster Arts figures. They released some pictures for him, and I think he's, like, the only toy that has any sort of a neck. Like, all the other toys, his head's, like, all squished onto his shoulders.
Yeah, that's true. They're all very solidly constructed and not as articulate looking as the one that they've making for 2014 Godzilla. But that's not the movie. We should talk about the movie.
We should talk about the movie.
That is a good idea, because I know nothing about Godzilla other than this movie.
That's true. This was actually Hannah's first kaiju film after Pacific Rim.
Second kaiju film. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pacific Rim.
Yeah, that's true.
She's got a lot of work ahead of her.
I know. I'm trying to pick a good movie. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Hannah? Since we're introducing you in this episode?
Might as well.
Well, sure, because, obviously you know me because, we live in the same apartment, but...
It's true.
My name is Hannah, like I said, otherwise known as Black Hole Girl. I am a collector of hobbies. I am a seamstress. I was an astrophysics student. I played clarinet for a lot of years, and I have a lot of knowledge about various random subjects that have no relevance to anything I actually do in my day-to-day life. But
welcome to ShallowCast.
I also really like movies. Thank you.
Yeah, we pretty much both have massively useless amounts of... We have massive amounts of useless information. I mean, I was a creative writing major, and I have weird philosophical viewpoints and cryptozoology knowledge, and you're an astrophysicist who is a seamstress and costumer, and Xander lives in a dumpster and shouts at people. So we all have, different backgrounds and different things we bring to the table on ShallowCast.
Is that how you guys met?
Yeah.
I feel like that's how you guys must have met.
I was walking past an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese, and Xander started throwing things at me.
Oh, I was wondering where that scar was from.
Oh, yeah, it's like, I try to grow my hair out to keep it covered.
I'll just have to make it bigger.
That was a terrible threat, actually.
That was really poorly delivered.
I was actually a little intimidated. The delivery was bad, but that was a good threat.
We're all about intimidation. Right. Speaking of intimidation, let's get back to Godzilla, because holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
I knew this movie was going to be good, but even going in, I still had no idea what to expect, because you don't know. I mean, they made a very good job of, you have no idea. They've talked about, the pre-credit scene. I mean, I have the art book. I bought The Art of Destruction and read through it, and I still had really no true idea what was going on with the movie and how it was going to open and stuff like that. My concept of that opening sequence with the credits and the bomb test and stuff, I thought that was going to be a fully acted sequence. I didn't realize they were going to put the credits over it, and I think it works fantastically.
It's a really good background for what's to come. I think there's a lot of foreshadowing in that opening sequence, which I found really interesting. And it was weird that it reminded me so much of the Godzilla 98 opening credits, because they do kind of the same thing with the Bikini Atoll testing and the marine iguanas and stuff swimming around. But they do it in a way that makes it seem a lot more serious and a lot more respectable in this movie.
Well, that's because it's Gareth Edwards doing it, not Roland Emmerich.
That's true.
Oh, Roland Emmerich.
Hey, he made one good movie.
He did, and it was the only good one.
Yeah, and he made it 20 years ago or something.
Yeah, I think it's closer to 25, actually.
Yeah, when did Stargate come out?
91?
1994.
1994.
Oh, 94.
It was 10 years ago. Oh, 20 years ago.
Okay.
I win!
Hooray!
I'm pretty sure it was 94. I could be mistaken. I'm 99% sure it was 94.
I'm just glad I actually knew how to count.
That would be
it's
important.
the little victories.
Yeah.
But yeah, this. I just want to love this movie for all of the years. I was trying to think of what to tell you last night, Nathan, when we were talking about, because I saw it last night and you guys saw it just a few hours ago. And
yeah.
And the thing that I keep coming back to is, when this movie comes out on Blu-ray, I'm gonna have to buy a bigger TV. That's how much I love this movie. I will go out and buy a bigger TV.
That's the appropriate reaction.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I've got multiple copies of Cloverfield. I have my digital, my Blu-ray, and my DVD copy. I'm gonna have to have at least that many copies of Godzilla, depending on the special features and stuff.
Especially if they do like they did with Pacific Rim, where they put all the Blu-rays in a statue. I kind of hope they do that again with Godzilla, only with a little bit more bigger statue type thing.
I would be totally down with that.
Right.
And I would need both of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let me see. All right.
I guess. I mean, because I know you said you wanted to talk about spoilers, so I don't know if this counts. But would you consider the origin kind of a spoiler, or do you just kind of?
No, I don't think that counts as a spoiler. Okay. It's been addressed in a couple different interviews and things. So I guess we'll start from there. Talk about the slight changes to Godzilla's origin, and Hannah, I'll fill in these blanks for you after Xander explains it.
Yeah. So basically, the way
pretend I am the unknowledgeable audience because I have no idea about 99% of Godzilla anything.
The kaiju neophyte that you are.
Okay, so basically, the way that it is explained in the movie is that Godzilla is the last remaining member of a prehistoric race of creatures that basically fed off the radiation of the planet. And as the radiation levels dwindled, they adapted to get closer and closer underwater, deeper underwater, closer and closer to the Earth's core, till to the point that they're feeding off of the radiation directly from it. And then basically the way that Godzilla is initially discovered is in the 50s, in 1954, which is, of course, related to the fact that the original Godzilla film was released in 54.
Yeah.
An American nuclear submarine dives below 10,000 feet and wakes it up. And it doesn't really look like it goes on a rampage. It just kind of looks like it's just kind of this angry monster. And then, of course, American military in the 50s, you know, that's what they do is they just try and kill it.
Drop some nukes on it, yeah.
Just drop some nukes on it. And that's essentially what the testing in the Pacific is they're not testing bombs. They're trying to kill something. And then a few years later, 55 years later, in the Philippines, a group of scientists led by Dr. Serizawa, in namesake only, but still an amazing reference to the professor in the original 1954 movie who creates the oxygen destroyer to kill Godzilla. He's played by Ken Watanabe, and Ken Watanabe is such a great actor, and I'm so glad he was in this. And a little bit later, because he's actually the first character to say the name Gojira, and holy crap, it's the best thing ever. Anyway, he is called to a mine in the Philippines where a ancient skeleton of a similar creature, it's not necessarily stated that it's Godzilla, it looks like it to be something similar, a similar size, but it's not a Godzilla creature.
I think that was the implication, it was another one of that same species as him.
Okay, I'll have to take another look.
Because it had like an actual reptilian style. It had an actual rib cage, and the Mutos aren't going to have a rib cage because they're exoskeletal.
Well, no, and that's where they get that's where they find the Mutos. Is they find technically two spores. One is
right.
One is dormant, and one has hatched and burrowed out. Okay.
I don't want to get that's almost recapping the film, and I don't want to do that because we want to make people go see it.
Right, that's true.
So they can see all this stuff for themselves.
Okay.
So the difference here for Hannah and our other listeners, in the original 1954 movie, is Godzilla, was he created by the radiation that was dropped?
I think it is
from the bombs.
It's depending, because I know that in stuff like Gamera and Rodan, those are implicitly stated to have been awakened by nuclear testing.
Yeah.
In Godzilla, I think it depends on the dub. I want to say that the English dub, which is of course not just a dub but a recut, almost going into Sentai territory there,
which
not only drastically overstates Godzilla's height, but I do believe they implicitly state it has something to do with nuclear tests, whereas in the Japan dub, it is implied that he was either created or at the very least awakened, and again, because part of that's because of the analogy of the horrors of atomic war.
I think the takeaway in the original film is supposed to be that he was awakened by the atomic bombs and stuff. So it's along the same lines as the 2014 film, but they've expanded upon that more extensively. The other origin for Godzilla, and this is in like the kind of like how they did Batman Begins, and that was different continuity for Batman. In the early 90s, when they rebooted the Godzilla franchise, his origin was that he was a Godzillasaurus, a dinosaur that was mutated by nuclear radiation dropped on the islands where he was still living, and that's what caused him to grow to colossal size and get the powers that he has. So,
and then they rebooted it again like 4 years later with King Ghidorah. But anyway,
well, that's the one I was talking about, was the King Ghidorah one, because that's when they actually go back and explain that that's how that happened.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I understand. But yeah, okay.
Anyway, we're not going to get too far into that series of movies because we're talking about Godzilla 2014.
We are talking about Godzilla 2014.
So Godzilla's origin is not changed, I think, so much as expanded upon. And
right.
It's tied into the Muto origin a little more than it has been in previous films. And I know there were a lot of people that were bothered by that change, but I honestly didn't have any issues with it. It made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it does help improve the science quite a bit. Because I mean, anytime, even in this day and age, radiation is still doesn't do anything they actually say it does in the movies. Radiation is
wildly misunderstood in movies of any kind of any era.
Yeah,
and I know this because my roommate is an astrophysicist and a scientist, and so she knows basically every scientific inaccuracy whenever we watch a movie, and she will tell them to me.
And yet Stargate is one of her favorite franchises.
I'm not complaining. I like learning this stuff.
That's because Stargate SG-1 went out of their way to make their science as accurate as they could while still being creative as a TV show.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Stargate SG-1 is actually Hannah's Godzilla. This is how she explained it to me and convinced me to watch Stargate with her.
Oh, that's...
It's the show that you've said, Hannah, you love it the most and it's influenced you the most, and it's basically your favorite show, I believe.
Stargate SG-1 was a huge aspect of my life growing up. It's what one of a couple of things that got me interested in the hard sciences in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's what got me interested in writing. It's what got me interested in just so many different aspects. And the characters themselves really, really influenced the way I grew up and started to interact with people and things as well. So Stargate SG-1 is a big part of my life. Mm-hmm. And while I understand that there are issues with it, it's so much better than 99.9% of other shows out there, especially for the time frame that it was in.
Yeah. So pretty much the same passion for and interest in Stargate SG-1 is what I and Xander have for Godzilla stuff.
Yeah,
and,
it definitely sounds like it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason we started this podcast, and actually it's part of the reason that I wanted you to be on the show, Hannah. I figured that with your scientific knowledge and your interests also being a little different from ours, you would kind of add a really good dynamic that Xander and I are not able to bring to this program. And,
yay!
Yeah.
I am more than happy to be the scientific advisor.
Excellent.
I'm glad you said that. So, all right, we've talked about how, the origin has changed. I didn't have any issues with the origin being expanded upon. Xander, you don't seem to have had any issue with it either.
Oh, no, not at all.
I guess we could talk about the Mutos for a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you feel about them as enemies for Godzilla? And Hannah, this is also open up to you.
I like them a lot. One thing I didn't realize until I started reading the art book is that they were supposed to be two different genders. And what I really love about it is the fact that there is I can't remember what the name is. Isn't it like a gender dichotomy or something like that, where the female...
Sexual dimorphism.
There it is, sexual dimorphism, where the female is significantly larger than the male, and I thought that was, again, really, really cool. I don't know why I dig that kind of stuff, but I thought that was really cool. And of course, the scene with who winds up being the male in Japan hatching was just incredibly shot.
There was a very tense scene, actually.
Yeah,
I was very impressed with it was almost like a Jaws-style Godzilla film, where you don't see the monsters for a while, and they build that tension and keep building it, and it works very effectively, I think.
Yeah, because you're just...
It was very well done. I mean, what I loved about those Mutos is that, coming from somebody who's never actually seen a Godzilla film before, it was very interesting to see these two creatures where one of them is smaller, but he can fly, and the other one is significantly larger, but she cannot fly. And the female Muto was actually slightly larger than Godzilla. So between the flight for the one and the size of the other, technically either one of them should have a huge advantage over Godzilla in any sort of fight. But the way they executed those fight scenes and everything like that was absolutely stunning and very, very well done and believable. And I really appreciated how they made that dynamic work.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I really loved the choreography of those fights.
Those were really, really cool. The way that Godzilla throws his weight around was just awesomely done. And again, it gets back to the way that they handle the movement of Godzilla. One thing that they did touch on a bit in the movie that I read about in the art book was that apparently an original concept for the history between these creatures and Godzilla was that the Mutos were actually parasites, more or less. Basically kind of like Oh my goodness. What are those wasps? It's basically like wasps, where the wasps attack spiders and lay their eggs. That's essentially what the Mutos did. They attacked Godzillas, they have to team up, they attack the Godzillas, and then lay the eggs in the radioactive carcasses of the Godzillas once they kill them.
God.
Yeah. And
that's terrifying.
Actually, that explains what happened underground at the beginning of the film then.
Right. It's touched
when they
upon.
Found that carcass. Okay.
Right.
Well, that makes sense.
It's touched upon, but they didn't fully embrace it, because I read in the book that basically the awakening of the Mutos, as part of their biology, they kind of, summon Godzilla. Instead of Godzilla being nature, restoring order, it's the Mutos themselves are actually calling to Godzilla in an attempt to lure it out and kill it, and then use it for baby food.
And so they don't use that in the film, is what you're saying?
They don't. No, they touch on the concept, but they did not embrace it. No.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe either. It didn't seem like he was being tricked or drawn to them because he was going to just be something they fed off of. It was like Dr. Sarazawa says, Godzilla was hunting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
They kind of turned the concept on its head. Instead of the Mutos being the hunters, Godzilla is, and I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want some artwork.
Yeah, I would love to get my hands on that art book. It would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the Mutos as a Godzilla foe. I wasn't sure how they were going to handle the movie as far as, balancing it between the three kaiju, because a lot of Godzilla movies, the kaiju are always pretty separate from one another right until the end. Godzilla's rampaging over somewhere in Japan, and whatever kaiju he's fighting is across the country somewhere, and they meet in the middle and have their climactic battle at the end of the film. And so you don't actually see them together most of the time. But this was like, the hunting analogy for Godzilla was very apt, because he is actively seeking the Mutos out, and he gets into, 3 different fights with them before the film is over.
Right.
And I was...
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, yeah.
Okay. And I was... it was really interesting to watch Godzilla in this film, because Gareth Edwards remembered that Godzilla is a character in the film. He doesn't just treat him like a plot device or a wild animal. Godzilla actually is pretty emotive. You can see him kind of shaking his head and shrugging off the hits when the military shoots at him. You can see how exhausted he is in his body language and stuff. I was very impressed that he remembered to make Godzilla a character in his own film.
Yeah,
because
you still
so many filmmakers have forgotten that.
Yeah, you still see flaring nostrils. And a lot of this, too, is the fact that it's an actual CG model and not a guy in a suit. But I mean, the eyes are so emotive, and the nostrils and everything. And when he opens his mouth and roars and everything inside is moving, he's just so well done. He's just so incredibly well done.
He has a very expressive face, especially for a CGI monster of any kind. They usually don't put that much effort into it.
Yeah, even the Mutos are expressive in their own way, just because of the way with their eyes and the way they make noises and things like that.
Yeah. They're interesting to me because I almost got the vibe from the trailers that they were going to be too smooth and too sleek looking. And I feel like there are some shots where they look a little like shinier and smoother and sleeker than Godzilla. And it's to a degree that's almost a little distracting, but they never go all the way with that. They never look out of place in the film. And I really like that about the kaiju in this movie. They don't look like they don't belong in the movie.
Yeah, and again, this is touched on the art book, but yeah, they really built everything from the ground up to really work together and fight together and everything.
Well, it shows, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you think about the set pieces? Because that's a big part of the Godzilla movies too. Is the cities and everything, not just the ones that are being destroyed, but just everything. And I love the set pieces in this movie.
I think the cinematography was a really interesting movie. It was very moody. There's a lot of darkness and a lot of rain and a lot of stormy weather. And the cinematography is just fascinating. The weird camera angles they chose for everything. A friend of mine was asking me, is it visually appealing? I'm going to go, oh yeah. It's not very colorful, but it is a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, I noticed it has a totally different color palette from Pacific Rim, because Pacific Rim has, it has greens and blues and yellows, a lot of blue and yellow all the way through. And Godzilla mostly has the darker tones. It's blacks on whites and dark greens and like mottled gray.
Lots of gray.
Yeah, lots and lots of gray.
But I mean, it doesn't hurt. I don't think it hurts the film.
I don't either. I think what it does is it evokes a certain mood, and it lends it a seriousness and a gravitas that I think Godzilla needed. Because I was very worried that American audiences wouldn't be able to take this movie seriously. It's a whole other vibe than Pacific Rim's being, we're just having silly over-the-top kaiju fights. This is meant to be taken as a serious film, and I actually think they accomplished that.
Yeah, and that's the thing to keep in mind, too, is that, this is Gareth Edwards' first major Hollywood film.
Yeah, because he made Monsters, but Monsters was honestly not very good. Especially not compared to this.
It was okay, but a lot of the big reason why Gareth Edwards was picked for this movie was because Monsters, he pretty much did everything himself. It was shot on a digital camera. He edited it himself. He did all the visual effects himself. This guy put so much work into this little film, and he just did it. He's like, okay, if this takes off as something, then fine. If not, then I'll just go back and start doing commercials again. And
that's how Neil... Oh, sorry. I was going to say, that's how Neil Blomkamp got District 9.
Yeah,
because
basically.
he was working on a Halo film, or the concept for a Halo film, and Peter Jackson apparently liked it enough. He was like, I'm going to give you millions of dollars and see what kind of movie you make. And District 9 happened.
I wish somebody would do that with me.
Right? You could make a Stargate Godzilla crossover. That would be amazing.
There's always comic books.
Let's not do that, actually.
Oh.
Well, it's honestly, it makes more sense on the Godzilla Pacific Rim crossover.
Yeah, I would not buy a Godzilla Pacific Rim crossover. There's too much lore that conflicts between the two films.
Well, yes, there is. But the reason why I mentioned Stargate is, talking about dimensions and stuff like that, the theoretical crossovers are more plausible with Stargate.
I will say that I saw a really good Tumblr post written by someone who is, of course, very intelligent and talented and attractive that made a pretty plausible Pacific Rim Stargate crossover. I'm pretty sure that if they had enough time, they could do a pretty decent Stargate Godzilla one, too.
Well, then they should take the time.
They probably should. I guess I will have to see if somehow that idea gets back to them. Hannah, this is the second kaiju film you've ever seen ever.
That is correct.
Why don't you tell us about your impressions of it a little?
Well, just touching on what you said a few minutes ago about how it was meant for American audiences to take it as a serious movie. Coming from somebody who has literally never seen a Godzilla movie before, I would say that they pulled it off brilliantly. There was not a single moment where I wasn't engaged with this movie. I was rooting for all the right people, including Godzilla, because he's just amazing.
He's who you're supposed to root for.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't always end up being the case with a lot of movies. Like, people who don't execute it properly, you end up either rooting for the wrong person, or you're just ambivalent and you don't care who wins.
It's like watching an X-Men film and Wolverine's supposed to be the star, but you really don't care about Wolverine at all.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion for another day.
It is. It very, very much is.
Totally for another day.
But I really enjoyed it. One of the main things I always have a hard time with movies of any kind, and Nathan can attest to this with all of the movies that we've seen together.
Oh, yeah.
I have a very, very hard time suspending disbelief when it comes to science accuracy. And it can get incredibly frustrating because there's a movie I legitimately want to enjoy, and then bad science happens and I can't. But everything in this movie, with a couple of minor exceptions, was very well executed, even including, how radiation works, which was surprising to me because that never happens.
Yeah.
But I loved the way that they built tension. I loved the way that they they first started to reveal that first Muto and how it was in this chrysalis that basically hatched and then wreaked havoc on the entire planet, well, on like two coasts.
Well, it would have gone on to do the whole planet. I know what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
if San Francisco had happened, then we would have been in trouble. But anyway.
Right. And one of my favorite moments was when they mentioned Nevada.
That's
you should
right.
have seen my face because I was just like, oh shit, they're going to Yucca Mountain, because my grandfather was actually a nuclear physicist and he worked on the Yucca Mountain project.
Yeah. And
he was one of their chief safety advisors. And so the instant I heard Nevada, I was just like, oh, are they actually going to put that in this movie? They totally did. And the part of Yucca Mountain was missing, which would probably be a problem.
I felt so dumb because I live in Vegas and I was so excited to see how this thing was going to attack, and I had no idea. I'm like, I know I should know where they're going, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah. I see, I didn't know any of that. For some reason, I had never made the Vegas connection. when I think of nuclear sites and stuff out in the desert, I always automatically think of like Area 51 or White
That's what I was
Sands in New
thinking.
Mexico.
I'm like, wait, Area 51? There's no way they're going to Area 51.
Yeah, that was my assumption. They're like, oh, of course, they put the extra spore in Area 51. But I was incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Ground Zero in New Mexico wouldn't make sense to have in a current kaiju film where they were attracted to radiation, because the radiation there is dissipated to the point where it's just null at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've actually been to Ground Zero, and it's actually kind of cool.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
you told me about that.
I think I've been to the nuclear testing museum down there, but that's it.
I've been to a old Soviet war museum in Ukraine, where they had like decommissioned subs and a bunch of old tanks and a big Soviet era statue that they started to build and didn't have the money to finish, so it's just an unfinished statue. So,
speaking of
Poor
subs,
Russia.
how about that scene in the jungle?
oh, that was fantastic.
That was amazing. I loved that. And the first thought in my head was, my mental reference was to Lost, which Nathan and I recently watched.
Oh, Xander hasn't seen it.
Just thinking about the Black Rock, the
Yeah.
ship, just in the middle of the jungle, and how the hell did that get there?
Yeah.
So that was immediately my first thought. But finding a submarine in the canopy of a jungle in Hawaii seems like it would be a little unnerving to a foot soldier on the ground.
Yeah, a tiny bit. And it was also covered in Muto slime, which is I would not been
tastes like
expecting.
chicken.
Yeah, when they first came across it, I was
Ew.
like, wait, did Godzilla just poop a submarine?
Xander! Why is it always poop with you?
Because
The
it was
slime probably would've
slimy.
been
I didn't
some
know
sort
what
of
it was
brown.
going to be. I don't know.
I feel like the slime would have been brown.
Yeah, it would have looked like fecal matter if that had been what
Not
had happened there.
necessarily.
Well, unless he's had a mostly liquid diet.
Yeah.
Which I think they usually show Godzilla eating like whales and stuff.
That's true. Or
Yeah.
Amoebus.
Yeah, that was a weird. There was a Godzilla movie, Hannah, where a big turtle carcass washes up on the shore and it's got like a big chunk bitten out of it, and that's how the Japanese people know that Godzilla is back. He's been killing these giant turtles and eating them. So
That's
what,
rude.
That's what Xander was referencing there.
Yep.
Ah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm okay with times when Godzilla kills turtles. It's a very subtle jab to a rival kaiju franchise that was around for a little while in Japan at the same time as Godzilla.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say it's a little startling considering how polite he was to everybody in this movie.
He really was. He goes out of his way to dive under the battleships and
Yeah,
stuff before
that's the
he
thing
surfaces.
too. Because like in Japan, I mean, it really doesn't really matter. In Japan, Godzilla gives no fucks. Like he just doesn't matter. What's in even in the tie-in game, which I wanted to talk about a little bit. That's what you're doing. You're attacking the military. But in this movie, no. Like even when they're
actually
directly
never
attacking
engages.
him.
Yeah. That was weird, actually. Like, no matter what happens, Godzilla doesn't engage with the actual military.
He's
Without
got higher priorities.
He does. That's true. It's just interesting because so much of the padding in earlier films and the earlier portions of the older films is Godzilla against the military. They try to repel him. They try to distract him. And there's 2 or 3 failed attempts at defeating him with some new weapon. And then he gets to the middle of Japan and he fights with his opponent. And when his opponent is vanquished, he turns around and heads back to the sea. And so it was interesting to see a Godzilla film where he doesn't fight against the military, and they're actually working together for all intents and purposes.
And it's especially interesting because this is the American military we're talking about here.
Whose solution to everything is, let's just drop a nuclear warhead on it. That'll fix it.
Basically. And someone even on Twitter said that they like how this movie basically subverts the let's nuke the bastard genre, which this movie does. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing, too. One thing I thought really got down perfectly was one thing, I mean, even though the military always tries to attack Godzilla, they also do have a very good habit of listening to scientists in the Godzilla movies. To the point, where, like, in some of the movies, the guys that save the day are these, everyday scientists that just happen to know a lot of whatever they do. Like, same with this movie. This movie listens to the scientists. They listen to Bryan Cranston's character. They listen to Dr. Serizawa and his team because these people have been dealing with this for so many years. They know better than anyone else what's going to work. Like, even the general running the operations goes, tell me, is this going to work? And
he does defer to the scientists a lot more than I've seen in most other kaiju films. It was actually very impressive.
Yeah. Which I appreciate, to be honest, because that never happens.
It never happens.
Here's the scientist speaking and immediately ignores whatever they said, and then they're surprised when their plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, even in Pacific Rim's not very fond of the scientists in that, and they saved the day a couple times.
I don't know. I feel like they gave the scientists their due. I was on the Pacific Rim Wiki the other day, and it talks about how some of the armaments on the Jaegers were designed by Newt based on his research on kaiju skin and hide.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I guess that makes sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's something... Oh, I can't remember what I was looking at. Because we were talking about where the other... how the newer Jaegers get their power. Because we were talking about the digital analog analogy that people seem to misinterpret as being actual science. And I went to go find out how Jaeger power cores work, but I found something on there about some of their armaments being designed by Newt based on his research into kaiju skin. And I'm like, they give the scientists a chance in Pacific Rim. They're pretty respectful to them, I think.
They are. It's just the scientists themselves are weird, and that's the reason that people think they're not being taken seriously. They're taken seriously. They're just
also crazy people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically, the military just kind of puts up with their weird idiosyncrasies because they're scientists and they know what they're doing. But if it were up to them, they'd probably be kicked to the curb just because they don't like dealing with these people.
Probably they would go find more normal behaving scientists who could do the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, normal behaving scientists, while they exist, they're not nearly as interesting.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I wouldn't have watched I wouldn't have enjoyed Pacific Rim as much if Newton and Herman hadn't been there. I think they do a whole lot to make the movie more fun.
They definitely do. One other really nice touch that I like, and it only happens once, but Nathan, as you know, and Hannah, you'll find out soon enough, is I am a big fan of Japanese culture in general. And one thing
I think she probably knows that already.
Probably.
Yeah, I've listened to enough ShallowCast episodes to realize that you're, a slight fan. You catch it here and there when you can.
Yeah. All those little subtle references he makes.
But at one point, the Dr. Serizawa's assistant, who I don't think we actually get a name for, and that's kind of depressing. But anyway, she calls him Sensei. And
oh, does she?
She does. When they're on the bridge, and she tells when she goes to tell him about the spoiler, she calls him Sensei. And I thought that was a really nice touch.
Oh.
Somehow I didn't catch that.
I missed that.
Yeah. That's
darn. We'll have to see it again.
Yeah,
gosh, that's going to be tragic.
For those that don't know, Sensei essentially means teacher. And it was just, again, it was a very, very nice, very, very nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
The only thing, really, the only problem that I had with the movie, and I don't even know if it's technically a problem, I wish there were subtitles for the Japanese parts, because I don't speak that much Japanese, and I can only pick up one or two words, and while it doesn't appear to have been anything super important, because we basically get explanations anyway, I would have liked to see what they were actually saying.
I will actually disagree. This is a weird thing I've noticed with myself lately. I actually kind of enjoy it in movies where you don't get the subtitles. It feels more realistic to me, because I've been, in Russia and in Ukraine and totally not understood what the hell people are saying around me. So it's kind of like, the main character has to not know what they're saying too, or the audience has to understand this experience the way that I do. So I almost feel like it's more realistic to not have subtitles sometimes. And that's a very silly, nitpicky thing of mine that I will freely admit doesn't have any bearing on the actual film at all.
I would actually agree with you on that one. And I would actually probably take it one step further and mention that it's really it's really a way to showcase the actors, because when you don't get subtitles with something like that, you have to rely entirely on body language and context clues, which not every actor can pull off.
That's true.
And those that can, you don't really care that you don't have subtitles, because you can still pick up on what's going on. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I was actually very impressed that Bryan Cranston's character learned to speak Japanese to get along with people out there.
Yeah,
like,
I appreciated that.
His Japanese was pretty good, because on a Sentai show that I have previously mentioned on several ShallowCast episodes, one of the characters is actually a Canadian actor, but he spends the whole time speaking Japanese, and you can tell...
Really?
Yeah. It's this big, fat, white Canadian guy, and you can tell that it's not his first language.
He's actually speaking Japanese on the Japanese TV show?
Yes, he is.
Like, that's intense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they have a character in Godzilla Final Wars played by Don Fry, who's an American actor. Yeah, and he doesn't speak any Japanese the entire film. He just speaks English to everyone, and everyone just speaks Japanese to him, and somehow they all understand each other.
It's
and
the
it's hilarious
damn
to me.
Thing in the world, yeah.
He's the Chewbacca of the film.
He is.
That or somebody got a hold of a babblefish.
Oh, well, I appreciate that reference. I would love to see that used in a movie. I guess it'd only be a Hitchhiker's movie, but I do like that.
So it was used in a movie.
That's true. Never mind then.
It was used in the movie, yeah.
And a TV series and a radio play.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about spoilers for a little bit? Because we've been kind of vague, but there's a couple of things I definitely wanted to touch on that I think we should talk about and go into spoiler territory for. So
yeah, I am about to set a timer. I'm going to give you 5 minutes for spoilers.
Okay.
So ready, set, go. Spoiler talk is for 5 minutes now.
Okay. Honestly, I was kind of surprised this movie had the balls to kill Bryan Cranston.
I was not expecting that. They kept that such a huge secret in every review and every marketing thing I've seen of it. I was not expecting that.
And then they made you think he wasn't going to die for a second.
Yeah, they did.
Anyway.
I'm like, oh my god, he's alive. It's like, oh, no. Crashed on the helicopter.
I was impressed that they didn't kill Ford's wife, because I was expecting her to die too for that parallel. Hannah mentioned the same thing on the way back from the theater.
I mean, because some of the foreshadowing's a little heavy, and you're like, Daddy, are you going to be here tomorrow? And you're like, oh
god, yeah.
Maybe?
I was expecting the entire situation to be parallel to, the 15 years ago situation where, he would lose his wife and then his son would become estranged and then, 15 years after that, another Godzilla thing happens.
Yeah. I would watch that movie, like a spin-off that takes place another, however many years in the future. And then, like, that little girl that was on the beach in Hawaii can be in it because she's grown up obsessed with kaiju.
And the little boy that was on the tram can be in it, too.
Yeah, you've got 3 characters that you could do a movie about in the future. Maybe they just grow up to be Tendo Choi and Raleigh Beckett and, I don't know, some friend of theirs who is not Mako because that was a white girl.
Yeah. But,
I'd be all right with that.
I would be down with that, yeah.
But just going to get a little bit more in depth in the fight scenes. The fight scene in San Francisco was so good.
I adored those fight scenes. The fight physics that they used in there was so incredibly well done.
Mm-hmm. It looked like actual animals fighting, which is very impressive.
It did. I love that, seriously, one part of that fight, I love it, it's just Godzilla just shoving the other thing around. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
That tail slam was absolutely amazing. Yeah. I loved
God,
that.
yes.
Yeah. That tail was so well done.
Yeah, I've wanted to see a well-animated tail attack from Godzilla for a long time. It's so hard to pull off in the suit, and they really did it justice in this.
And then another thing that I think we've discussed, I don't know if we discussed it on the podcast, but I know we were talking about wanting to see, because they had basically confirmed that his atomic breath would be in the movie in some form a while ago. But we didn't really know what it was going to look like. Even because of the toys, there's some toys, but it's just like a little missile. So we're like, okay, what the hell is this going to look like?
Yeah, the toys don't show the spines lighting up in the amazing way they do in the film. Yeah,
and the way that they do his atomic breath, it actually behaves like an actual fire breath. It's not a beam of energy, because I don't think it would work in the physics of this movie. Like if it was a beam, I would have some problems. I mean, it's still very, very thin.
He does not have a laser in his throat.
Yeah, he does not have a laser in his throat. He's breathing fire.
And in some films, that is how it's animated. Is it's like he's got a laser in there.
Yeah, basically. But no.
Yeah, that's upsetting.
I was very impressed at the fact that they didn't overuse the flame breath, because some movies they do overuse his atomic breath.
They do, and it's like...
They got the balance just right, and dude, that final climactic hit at the end was fucking phenomenal.
That was absolutely lovely.
I thought he was gonna,
I'm not even a Godzilla fan, and I almost jumped out of my seat and just shouted "yes" in the theater. But
I think I actually did.
I
know my theater clapped when that happened, but I thought we were going to get
was surprisingly quiet.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get like a jawbreak or something. Nope, it's a
kiss of death.
Yeah, kiss of death, basically.
Basically, I loved that. I feel like they used Godzilla, and this isn't even a spoiler, they used him just the right amount. I hated the repeated cock tease of starting the fight and then not actually showing it, but the payoff at the very end when they actually give us a full-length fight was amazing. It was well worth the wait and all that build-up.
It really was. And we actually talked about this on the last podcast, how we were both kind of afraid that there was not enough Godzilla in this, and no, there was plenty of Godzilla in this. I got my fill.
There was just the right amount of Godzilla.
I agree completely.
And I think I hate Godzilla vs. Biollante a little more because of it.
Oh, that's not fair.
I don't understand that reference.
The last podcast we did, Xander was complaining about that movie, Godzilla vs. Biollante, because it was very human heavy and not very Godzilla heavy.
Okay, I remember the complaint. I didn't remember the title.
Oh yeah, that's fair. We got 30 seconds. You guys got any more spoilers?
Snape kills
somebody
Dumbledore.
almost cried when they almost killed Godzilla.
Oh, no, they weren't going to kill Godzilla.
I was genuinely concerned, all right? I was very concerned about that.
I was watching that,
there were
and I'm
actual
like...
tears happening. It was very entertaining.
There were actual
tears. I was watching this, and I'm
tears.
like, Nathan's going to be concerned. I was waiting for this dumb idiot to open his eyes.
I was scared, though. I got really afraid. I was like, don't do this to me. Not again. I think I was saying that out loud over and over, actually.
You were, actually. It was a little distracting.
So I don't know if these count as spoilers.
Spoiler time is over,
okay.
Actually. My timer just went off.
Well, I was going to ask about Easter eggs and if you guys spotted any, but...
I only spotted one, and that was the hand motions and movements and the grabbing and the very final scene of the last fight looked very reminiscent of Godzilla trying to get a grip on Mechagodzilla. And also when he's attacking people trying to pry at their jaws. I saw a lot of that same hand movements. Okay. Was there another reference you were spotting?
Yes, when they go back to the house, some damage to the fish tank has caused the word Mothra to appear at the bottom of it.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. And I don't know if it's a reference.
What?
Yes, but I don't know if it's a reference. I'm still on the fence about this, but the name of the boat tour is Go Whales Tours, which I think might be a very, very subtle reference to the fact that Godzilla, or rather Gojira, is a combination of the kanji for gorilla and whale.
Maybe. That seems almost
I feel like that might be a stretch.
I think it's a bit of a reach.
That's what I think it might be, too. And also on the poster, it almost looks like, I don't know if it's supposed to be more like Zilla or more like Orga, but the poster in young Ford's room kind of looks like there might be.
Yeah, he's got that weird nondescript kaiju on that poster on his wall, which is strange to me.
Yeah.
Because it's a universe where Godzilla does not exist as far as pop culture is concerned. There are no kaiju yet.
Well, just because Godzilla doesn't exist doesn't mean they don't have a fascination with giant monsters.
Well, that's true. Yeah, there's still precedent to make that movie. That's true. Oh man, there's one more spoiler I wanted to mention. I'm not gonna flat out say it. The news ticker at the end when they show that newscast showing Godzilla.
Yeah, that's more of an. I think that's more of an Easter egg, but I know what you're talking about, and that's brilliant.
That was the most beautifully fan servicey thing the movie could possibly have done.
I loved it.
Oh God, yes, Our theater was surprisingly silent. I wanted people to be like clapping and cheering, and I was the only one getting that into it, except for Hannah. Hannah got really into it. And
my
made me
theater
really
was way into it, dude. I mean, because the IMAX countdown, the IMAX theaters do a countdown because they're all about themselves. The IMAX countdown's orchestral music ended in his roar, and I'm just like,
"Are you serious?
Yeah."
That's so rad.
Yeah, it was really good.
Our theater was full of tiny children and 40-year-old white people, so that's probably why it was so quiet.
Well, and also the people that were going to like midnight showings and stuff yesterday, those are going to be the more dedicated fans.
Yeah,
I would have gone if I could. Well, that's good. I'm really hoping that this does, like, now that I know it's a good movie, and now that I know they got Godzilla right, the only thing I have to be concerned about is this movie going to make enough money for more Godzilla movies, and are people going to be appreciative and take it seriously? Those are my concerns now, which were my post-Pacific Rim concerns too.
Right, and those.
I certainly hope we get more follow-up on both of them. Actually,
I agree 100%. I would love anything else we get in either universe.
Yeah, but I guess time will tell.
So let's just. All right. Final thoughts on the movie, then you can talk about your tie-in phone game you've been playing.
I was going to go see it again this afternoon before the podcast, but then the movie theater's soda machines weren't working, and that kind of irked me, so I'm like, I just don't want to deal with that, so I went home.
Wow. That's a really crappy excuse to not go see it again.
I know, but I wanted a big soda.
You could have... Okay, all right, never mind. Final thoughts on the film. Xander, go.
I want to go see it again. I need a bigger TV.
All right.
Go see it. Go buy a bigger TV.
Okay, good.
Go see it in IMAX.
Hannah, final thoughts on the film?
Definitely need to see it again, and when it comes out on some sort of media that you can own and play in your own home, we need a couch and a living room and a TV to put in the living room for the purposes of Godzilla watching.
Absolutely. All right. And okay, my final thoughts. As somebody who's grown up on kaiju, has, as you guys know, has spent like the last 20 years of my life watching these movies all the time and loving Godzilla as my favorite fictional character, I think this was a fantastic film. It's a very respectful, very serious, very sincere portrayal of Godzilla. So speaking as a diehard kaiju fan, I can't recommend it enough. It was fantastic. This is everything that Pacific Rim was paying tribute to.
That being said, Hannah, I know you said this is only the second kaiju movie that you've seen, so I guess I would ask, does it rank higher or below Pacific Rim?
Oh, I'm curious to hear this from people too, actually.
Oh God, that's a really good question. I hadn't even put any thought into that.
I think I know how to split it up. I want to hear what you guys have to say first, though.
I would put them actually on equal ranking, but for different reasons.
All right,
that makes
I think
sense.
We're coming at this from the same place here.
I really, really, really appreciated the character development in Pacific Rim, the interactions between the different characters, the way the story itself developed, quite a lot more than I did in Godzilla. But in Godzilla, I actually liked the creature design and the cinematography. And the pacing, actually, a lot better than I did in Pacific Rim.
All right.
So I would put them on equal ranking, as far as my own personal opinion goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably put... I'm going to give Godzilla bonus points for not having such awful science.
All right. That's fair.
That's fair. And then Nathan, for you, I know we have talked about our favorite Godzilla movies before in the past, and I wanted to know where this one ranks for you.
Well, first of all, I will say that I agree completely with Hannah about Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim has better humans. Godzilla has better kaiju. I feel like the pacing in Godzilla is a lot more suspenseful and a lot more dramatic, and Pacific Rim is like pure fun, where Godzilla is moodier and darker and scarier. So they both have their strengths and weaknesses, but because Godzilla is the original, or based upon the original, I gotta put that a little higher on my list. As far as where it ranks on, like, Godzilla canon hierarchy, I feel like it would be disrespectful of me to say it's the best, and so I will not outright say it.
Well, I didn't mean that. Do you think it's the best? I meant in terms of your list of movies. Where does it rank?
I think it is
top 5.
It's absolutely top 5. It's probably top 2 or 3. But the thing is about my top 3, they're each the best examples from their specific era of kaiju film. Like, Destroy All Monsters is my favorite of the original Showa series.
I think it's considered the best Showa, actually. But anyway, and GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which is why we just call it GMK, yep.
Is the best of the Millennium series, in my opinion. And so, Godzilla 2014, or Legendary Godzilla, it's the best Godzilla movie we've got for this decade, this century, this style of filmmaking.
I mean, is this the Legendary Era? Is that what we're going to call this, you think?
I don't know. It depends on what Toho Studios does from here. Because they did technically end the franchise with Final Wars. If they bring it back, I almost feel like we would want to call this Legendary Era. Yeah. Because it's not the Millennium Era anymore.
Right. And I was going to go the same route, because I've said before that GMK is my favorite Godzilla movie overall. And these two are going to fight it out, I think. I think these two are going to be my top 2 for quite some time until I can figure out
I think so too.
How I can judge this. One thing I just realized is that Pacific Rim and Godzilla 2014 both kind of feature San Francisco rather heavily for their own reasons, and I thought that was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Then again, so does The Core, so, I mean, I guess there's no accounting for taste or anything like that.
We don't speak of that movie.
I've never seen it.
When it comes to bad science, oh my god.
See, I had a feeling...
I'm going to not, because otherwise this podcast will never end, because I will be ranting about The Core for like 2 hours, and it'll be awful.
Hannah,
we
can continue this discussion later, because as Nathan will attest, I really, really like disaster movies as a whole, and The Core is actually one of my personal favorites.
Well, we've got time after this episode. If we just wanted to record more stuff and put it in other episodes, that could totally be a thing that we do.
I like that plan.
I like that plan a lot.
We're coming up on...
That gave me an idea for something. But
okay.
But I'll discuss that after we get off mic. But anyway,
all right, we're coming up on an hour here. I want to keep this under, if possible. Talk about this tie-in iPhone game really fast, because you want to for some reason.
Yeah, this
1, 2, 3, go.
This is honestly this game I've been playing, which is called Godzilla Smash 3. It's probably one of the best movie tie-in games I've ever played. It's basically the Candy Crush formula, like to the letter, where there's different levels. You have to match different tiles. You have different power-ups. I mean, to the point where you even have a live system and, in-game purchases and all that stuff. But at the same time, matching those tiles is sending Godzilla on a destructive rampage through the city. You're fighting jets and boats, and you're crushing buildings, and every few levels you fight a Muto and punch it in the face. And There's RPG elements. You can upgrade different elements of Godzilla. You can improve his attack, the way he regens health and stuff like that. He even has his atomic breath attack. If you charge it up enough, you can actually use his atomic breath. And just for the way that it makes you feel like you're controlling Godzilla when all you're doing is matching tiles, it hits it out of the park. And especially you can download it for free. Like I said, it's free. You don't have to do any in-app purchases if you don't want to. It's a blast, but it is the Candy Crush formula, like to the letter. It's just Godzilla.
And we all know how Nathan feels about Candy Crush.
That game is the most infuriating piece of technology in the universe, and it makes me so angry, and I can't stop playing it, and I hate it.
Then you need to play Godzilla Smash 3.
I played it for about 20 minutes this morning after you wouldn't shut up about it, and it's okay, but I'm always so suspicious of movie tie-in games. It's impossible to find good ones. The Lord of the Rings ones were pretty bad, the Spider-Man ones are decent at best, and I don't think there's ever been a good X-Men movie game.
No, but usually it's just the X-Men being in other games that's good. But anyway...
Yeah.
Talk to me when you play the X-Files games.
Oh,
Those
God.
are horrible tie-ins.
I don't even want to think about
that.
Hey,
speaking of bad science.
I don't want to know, do I?
It's X-Files. It's bad science.
Everything in X-Files is bad science.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Well, this is actually... you guys think that we're done?
I think we're good.
I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
Time to go home.
Then, in that case, I will say thank you guys for listening to our Godzilla ShallowCast review. As you can tell, we all loved it, from Kaiju Diehard to Total Kaiju Newbie. This is actually the end of Season 1 of ShallowCast. Thank you guys for listening to our 9-ish episodes so far. It's been a hell of a run.
It has been a hell of a run. And Hannah, welcome aboard.
Yeah, because you're kind of actually a canon main character on ShallowCast now. So
pretty much are, yeah.
Yes. No, you're the third host, so congratulations.
Yes.
Yay, I finally have an outlet to criticize science.
You do. I'm excited to have your... because you know Star Wars better than I do. You know Harry Potter better than I do. You know a lot of other nerd stuff that I can't discuss on the show, and neither can Xander. So...
Excuse you?
It's going to be good. Xander, you don't know shit about Harry Potter.
No, but I know Star Wars. Expanded universe, bitch.
You know shit about writing your fan fiction where Boba Fett falls in love with you.
No.
Dude, I've read your diary. I know that shit is in there.
No, it's not.
And all those drawings that you put on your DeviantArt you didn't expect me to find.
That's
Dude,
a lie.
You've got some problems.
And then that one showed up at Hot Topic, and that was the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's just... You have a serious problem, and we're going to have to discuss that on, a Star Wars episode at some point.
Oh, I can't wait. Episode 7 started filming today.
That's going to be miserable for me.
I'm so excited.
All right.
I'm excited, too. All right, so from all of us at ShallowCast, thank you for listening to us babble like morons.
Again.
I have been Nafansaurus. I can be found on Twitter and Tumblr at nafansaurus.tumblr.com and twitter.com/Nafansaurus. ShallowCast page is at facebook.com/ShallowCast or Shallow37 on Twitter, I believe.
Shallow37 Media, even though this is the only media we've produced. But again, as I've said before, that's going to change hopefully soon.
Yeah, no, that's right. Okay, Xander, do the thing. Hannah, do the thing. Let's get out of here.
Okay, I'm on Twitter at Xander Grimm, twitter.com/Xander Grimm. And I'm on Tumblr at thexandergrimmshow.tumblr.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I am at blackholegirl.tumblr.com and also at twitter.com/blackholegirl. However, I want to warn you that I am very boring. These other two guys are more with it.
She doesn't really say much of anything on Twitter except for when Instagram pictures go up, which is fine. You don't have to be Twitter-y. You don't have to be Twitter proficient to be on the show. That's not a requirement.
Nah, I'll take care of that part.
Yeah, we're good there. All right. I can't think of a joke to end this episode with.
Well, we could always go with the classic.
Okay, what's a classic?
Go home.
Oh, right. I was thinking of a joke, not catchphrase. I'm going to have to work on this with you, aren't I?
Yep.
Well, at least I can look forward to a long series of episodes of you and Hannah getting along perfectly fine.
This is going to be fun.
Oh, yes, it is.